Soup season has arrived, and if you live in Germany, it's already been here for a while and it's here to stay. So, here are the three soups I've been making on repeat. The full recipes, as always, are on my website dianavifood.com, and the links are in the video description. Let's start with my mushroom soup. It is juicy, tangy, comforting, and it never seems to disappoint. I like to use several types of mushrooms, and this time I used king oyster, shiitake, and portobello, cutting them into bite-sized pieces. I also had some dried shiitake strips, which I simply chopped into smaller pieces. I dice carrots, and you can also add peas, broccoli, leek, celery, onion, and garlic. In a deep pot over medium-high heat, I melt butter, and once melted, I add the fresh mushrooms, sauteing them with occasional stirring. I prepare a bundle of herbs to flavor the broth. Here I used sage and chives, leaving part to chop and add later. I also like to use oregano leaves, thyme, and maybe a little rosemary. Once the mushrooms have softened, browned, and released their liquids, I add flour, stir it in, and once it disappears, I add white wine or white wine vinegar. The flour makes the soup thicker and creamier, helping the mushrooms blend better into the texture. Then I add the carrot cubes and mushrooms, along with miso, paprika, cumin, salt, nutritional yeast, and mushroom powder, stirring to combine the vegetables and spices. Then adding water. I scrape the bottom because there are lots of flavors and textures that I want to mix into the soup. After that, I add the herb bundle for the broth, a bay leaf, and the bundle we prepared earlier. I cover and cook for 20 minutes, stirring occasionally. Now for the greens in the soup, I like to add either spinach or kale. Right now it's kale season, so I couldn't skip it. I just really love kale. I chop it so it's easy to eat in the soup, but still has these long strips. I also chopped spinach, chives, and parsley. I add a little bit of lemon juice because I love the soup tangy, but this is optional because we already added the white wine or the white wine vinegar. I like the soup slightly brothy but a little thick, so I dilute it slightly with hot water. Then I add the greens and stir them in. A bit of cooking cream just because I already had an open one in my fridge. I removed the herb bundle and bay leaf. I turn off the heat and cover for about 10 minutes before serving. That same evening, we went to a Cirque du Soleil show and it felt like an early dinner. I feel like the evening couldn't have been more perfect, especially since our generous friends came to look after Gracie while we were at the show. Soup and challah are such a simple combination, yet so grounding and heartwarming, warming both the body and the home. The next soup comes with an embarrassing confession. When I was little, I was obsessed, seriously addicted to this pea soup from Pea Soup, I think it's called. The powder you just add to boiling water. Luckily, my parents didn't encourage eating this at home, so I got real soups, but I'll always have a soft spot for that soup, which I could make with zero cooking skills in 5 minutes. Since then, I always come back to creamy, thick pea soups with some peas and small carrot pieces. The herbs here are chives, cilantro, or parsley for those who dislike it, and a bay leaf. Normally, I like to add mint leaves, but since I didn't have any, I went for a different flavor and chopped pickled pepperoni pepper, and it blew my mind. In a deep pot over medium-high heat, I heat olive oil and the chopped carrots, crushed ginger, and the chopped pepper, sauteing lightly just until the carrots soften a bit. Then I add the peas. I season with salt, ras el hanout, organic soup powder, dried dill, and cumin. I also like adding nutritional yeast everywhere, so here too. Aside from taste, it's just so healthy. I sprinkle a little pepper and add boiling water. Bay leaf and chopped chives and cilantro go in. I cover for about 10 to 15 minutes and then remove some of the carrots and peas, keeping them as dry as possible. Then I remove the soup from the heat and blend with an immersion blender. Of course, you can also use a regular blender. I blend until as smooth as possible, adding some reserved carrots and peas if I want more thickness. I return it to low medium heat, add cooking cream I like, Oatly's, which isn't too heavy and is oat based. Then I add the reserved peas and carrots, stir for about a minute and remove from heat. I drizzle a little more cream, chopped herbs and pepper. You could also make bread croutons that would be really tasty with it. So today we're making Mapo Tofu. I'm using more vegetables and also spinach, which is really non-traditional. I'm choosing to use this extra firm silken tofu. I like it because it's like kind of in the middle between firm tofu and silken tofu, which is really nice. Also because there's ground beef. I think in the traditional Mapo tofu, I decided to try and add TVP, which is minced soy, dried soy. I didn't try it in the original recipe, just probably Gonna add some more water. For this dish, beyond the basic ingredients, I don't skip radishes and shimeji mushrooms. I feel they belonged in this dish. I cut the radishes into thin half slices, and the mushrooms, I cut the stems and cut it twice, lengthwise. A nice addition, in my opinion, is cherry tomatoes. Their tanginess and juiciness in the soup are wonderful. You can also use regular tomatoes instead. I also bought Thai basil, which I wanted to try here, and I chop it finely. The silken tofu I cut into bite-sized cubes. In a small to medium pot over a low to medium heat, I heat sesame oil and add crushed ginger. After a few seconds before the ginger burns, I add the radishes and saute until slightly softened. Meanwhile, I prepare the thickening sauce. I mix red lentil flour, miso, gochujang, chili oil, rice vinegar, and hot water, stirring well until combined. After the radishes soften, I add the mushrooms, cherry tomatoes, and basil. In hindsight, I would have added the basil at the end. I also add the TVP. I add the thickening sauce and water, cover and bring to a boil. After it boils, I stir a bit and let it cook for another 5 minutes. Then I add spinach and tofu cubes and drizzle a little tamari on top. I stir gently and cover for 2 minutes. The simmer should be medium, not too strong. If it is too strong, just lower the heat. I made sushi rice in my rice cooker, which I really don't understand how I lived without until now, being someone who's so obsessed with rice. And before anyone says I murdered this traditional dish, let me just say that I believe food should be fun and accessible for everyone. You shouldn't feel pressured to impress or always follow someone else's instructions. Good food is food that doesn't harm anyone, especially animals. What could be more important than that? Stunning. Imagine this on your fluffy, steamed, hot, or warm rice. Perfect, really. Now let's try it. There are two things I really hope didn't go wrong. One of them is that it's not too spicy for me, because every time I add chili oil, I'm somehow adding too much. And the minced soy didn't ruin the overall flavor. It tends to have this sort of aftertaste. So we try a bit of rice. On it. Let's see. Spicy in the perfect amount. And I like it how it's relatively healthy and IBS friendly. I don't use garlic and onion and spring onions, whatever. But if you want to add, you're more than welcome. But it's so good, and it's lunchtime, so I want to call Guy so he could taste this as well. If you haven't already, I will really appreciate if you like this video, perhaps comment, and of course subscribe to my channel. And I see you really soon with the next video.